People have been doing this for a long time. As far as humanity can remember, people gather. But before they had TVs, what did people do, like, together? What would they do? Oh, talk. Okay, talk. But what did people gather, like, publicly? What would they do?
Sing.
Singing. Okay.
Dance.
Dance. This is getting really close. I'm looking for something. Theater. Theater. Good. So this is a really popular thing. People would actually gather and they would watch theater. They watch plays. They didn't have microphones back in the day, so they had to design the auditoriums so that they would echo. And actually, it was in Salt Lake City, and they have this beautiful auditorium at the Mormon Temple right downtown. And I took a little tour inside, and the auditorium was so scientifically designed that if you just stood at the end and spoke, you could just hear it as if it was a huge amplifier. So, so people didn't have all the technology that we have today. So people used to do these kind of artistic viewings. They used to watch art, poetry, music, like that. So today we have the same thing. We like to watch a drama, but we have a little box. We have the TV box, right? Everyone watches their favorite show. Everyone watches their drama. So we've been immersed in this technology since we've been born. Ever since I can remember, I was born. I was plopped down in front of the TV, and that was my entertainment. That was my school, my babysitter, everything all wrapped in one. It was just like this. So actually, before that, we didn't know of anything else. But when technology started to emerge, technology started to emerged with art. So artistic theater, music, dance, it started to merge with technology. And we were like, oh, this is great. This is a whole new world of technological art, that we have never seen before. So while many persons were enthused and still enthused to this day, there was a group of traditionalists, artists, artisans, philosophers, persons who were very much concerned, and they wrote some very beautiful papers on this. I just read this paper. It's from early 1900s. It's one of the most popular discussions about art and its form and how it has changed in the technological world, and had some interesting things to say. One of the first things is it stated that art, like I said, has been in humanity since the beginning of time. And back then, if you study all ancient cultures, civilized cultures, and indigenous, you had various forms of art. I just learned something about the Easter Islands the statues, the heads. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Apparently, they've been doing some digs, and if you dig down, they want to see how big are they? Where do they go? They're huge. They're gigantic. They actually have bodies. So what we only see is the heads. But actually, when they dug down, they found that these long bodies, and this is like pure stone, 80 tons. Can you imagine? And so they were really baffled, like, wow, how did these unintelligent indigenous people carve these things, drag them from the rock quarry, 80 tons, using ropes from palm trees, and it was kind of interesting. But they finally concluded, like, well, why would they do this? That was a more important question. Why would they do this? And then, some archaeologist was speculating. He's like, well, I think they were having a competition, who could build. And he said, and what happened to them? Where'd they go? Because they didn't know how they could get on this island. Where did they come from? How did they get on this island? They must have came by boat. And it's like, well, where did they go? Like, oh, well, they must have, one guy speculated, they must have been fighting to see who could build the bigger totem. And then they used up all the palm trees, and that was their source of food, and they all died. There's various speculations. But it's kind of interesting. But when it came to answer this question, why did they do it? The question was answered that it was more than just art. It had spiritual significance, and somebody suggested, which is very plausible, that this is a Polynesian tribe, and they're deeply connected to the earth and their ancestors. And so this one person believed, this researcher believed, that these heads on Easter Island represented their ancestors or kings who previously ruled this place. So you could see that had a lot of deep meaning. Now if you look at all the indigenous cultures in the world, you'll find such works of architecture, art, statues, and especially in India, very much in the Hindu or the Vedic philosophy in India, you have these statues which adorn the outer building, and then you have this revered or sacred statue within the temple, this deity that's also called deity. And so people question, well, what is the purpose of all this? And again, it comes down to answer this, that art has two purposes, and this is what was defined in the paper. Historically, art had what is known as ideological value, and he defines it here as cult value. Cult means a specific group of people, their ideals, their values, and art very much became the medium which to serve those values. And then he said, now in the modern society, in modern technology, we have something brand new. Art became exhibition value. So we have art in its traditional form, and then you have this new form of art and its exhibition value. So in the Indian text, the Sanskrit texts that discuss aesthetics or the science of beauty, which have been discussed by many cultures, but particularly in this Indian tradition, they have three criteria by which art is judged, and it's Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. So in Sanskrit, it translates, if you're rusty in your Sanskrit, okay, got one left now. So Satyam is truth, Shivam means it's beneficial, and Sundaram means it's beautiful. So this is the cult value, or the cultural value by which art was conceived. Does it reflect beauty? Does it reflect truth? And does it reflect auspiciousness, or that which is beneficial when being concentrated or meditated upon? So this is a very interesting thing, and that's exactly coming to the Western view of aesthetics. You have Aristotle and Plato. Now Plato, I believe he was the teacher, and when he first commented on art, he said, well, he didn't really very much approve of it philosophically. He said there's some problems. There's a few problems he saw on a philosophical level.
Poetry, totally disregarded poetry.
Yeah.
Was totally useless.
Yeah, and
That was his opinion.
yeah, and his reasoning why was because it imitates. Because art imitates. It's problematic and it's not true. And his reasoning was because it imitates beauty, it doesn't actually have beauty in itself. It's just imitating something else. And he said the problem with this is the more you meditate on art, the more it separates you from reality. So Aristotle, I don't want to get too complicated, it's an interesting subject, but Aristotle, he saw things differently. He said no, he argued that art has inherent beauty. Because it reflects, it's a reflection. So even though it's not the real thing, like the sculpture of Venus, which is famous, or other Greek sculptures, even though it's not the real thing, there's still beauty within it because it's reflecting the real thing. So this is very much what the Indian philosophy also taught, was that even though it's not, it's an imitation, when it reflects truth, beauty, and auspiciousness, it actually becomes that. It actually becomes one. So very much art was used to elevate one's consciousness. So you don't have people carving things per se in spiritual India or in the spiritual circles for the sake of, hey everyone, look what I did. But it's more so for not so much exhibition. It doesn't matter if people see it or not. It just matters more that it exists. Got it? So this is the original traditional value of art, is to reflect this. So going back to the modern, things change radically with technology, and it all began with the camera. So first they took pictures of people. You'll see people all standing for a photo. It's quite funny. And everyone's just standing, and I guess it took a long time because they had to don't move, They got under the big thing, and then you just had a picture. And then gradually people started taking pictures of things like streets, empty streets, and then people used photos. Hey, look, it's a crime scene. Hey, let's take a picture of this. So So the idea of the photography or the portrait started to take a different meaning. And then when art entered the field, it started to take a whole different meaning altogether. And that's exactly what he's talking about, exhibition value. Now this is really interesting in our culture because what do most people do? You know, year long, they wait for the big movies. There's big movies. So we don't watch, you know, plays, you know, being performed, you know, but we go to the movie theater. So when we go to the movie theater, we're watching these exhibitions. And some of these critics who were trying to warn society, you know, like about art, you know, these art lovers, they wanted to see this ancient tradition. That was one of their criticisms, is that what happens when you mass produce art is that you change quality for quantity. And when you do that and you mass produce something and then you have a mass exhibition, and that's exactly what our culture does with movies and art and all this stuff. It's a mass exhibition, especially with the internet now. You produce a movie, everyone's gonna, how much did that movie make? You know, 28 million, you know, its first night. It's just an enormous amount of people exhibiting, watching something. And so what happens, he says, is with special effects and slow motion things, you know, kind of what Plato said, you know, kind of removes one from reality. It starts to become more of a spectacle where people want to see the special effects. People want to see the scary movie or the scary part. And pretty much the main criticism there is that art, which is based in an exhibition way of creation and viewing, it does something to the viewer, which is really interesting. It makes the viewer very passive, and it makes the viewer who's viewing the art passive, and he requires no presupposed ideological value. In other words, just to make it really simple, if you go to the movies, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of these movies are just dumb. There's just like really dumb jokes, and here's like, and you kind of feel it. It's like, here's the part where we're all supposed to laugh, you know? And it's like, and if you didn't laugh because it was so cheesy, it's like, you know, like you're weird or something. Because the movies are made to entertain. And then not only that, then what do they inspire within us? I want to be famous. You know, as soon as I check my emails, like, you know, this person who's a great movie actor, they did this. They got divorced or something. And you're supposed to be all concerned about this, like, oh my God, this movie actress, they're having problems in their relationship. And you're supposed to be so concerned about it. And then there's like blogs about it, you know, like getting into every detail, like, you know, we followed her and we snapped a picture of her, you know, this is after they broke up, and you know, it's kind of psychotic, it's kind of sick, it's stupid, it's dumb. But just look, this is what this art culture of exhibition has produced. A bunch of people who mindlessly just watch this exhibition, and there's no concentration. And I'll sum it up with this. This was the main criticism. They said when you analyze the difference between these two art forms, you'll find that exhibition art creates distraction. And that's exactly what the television show's there for. To distract you long enough so you'll watch the commercial, and that's what pays for the broadcast. And so he said it's a culture of distraction. He said where real art, true art is dying. Why? Because art is a culture of concentration. He said the greatest works of art, people would concentrate. What is the value? What is the ideological value? And then it's an individual reflecting upon these things and coming to their own realizations of what is truth, beauty, and auspiciousness, what is beneficial for the self. So very much we live in this society, and TV's, you know, it's in everyone's life. And you know what they say, the brain waves, you know, alpha, beta, and delta. Delta's sleeping, so when you watch TV, it says your brain waves are just like you're sleeping. So that's kind of the problem with, you know, the art, the movie industry, is that it very much encourages this culture of distraction like that. So I hope I brought up some interesting points. It's a very interesting subject. There's a lot more I could say, but I think I'll end there. Is any